Hey everyone, TN Outdoors 9. We're going to try something today with the AR-15. This is a 16-inch barrel. It's a Rock River Arms upper receiver, 1-to-9 twist, and a Bushmaster lower receiver. It's topped off with an EoTech 516. No magnification on that. And we're going to do something with this federal surplus NATO ammo. This is the XM193, also known as M193. 5.56 millimeter ball or full metal jacket. 55 grains, and I have a 2005 batch of this, Lake City. I've had this around for quite a while. In fact, I like to keep my magazines stocked with this as opposed to the 62 grain green tip. I like both the penetration and fragmentation possibilities of this load. Most folks seem to prefer the 16-inch barrel of the AR because of the portability factor of it. I prefer the 20-inch myself. Now the 20-inch, this cartridge, you're going to get approximately 3,200 to 3,250 feet per second. It's going to drop off a little bit in this 16-inch barrel. My 10-shot average, 3,118 feet per second. That's 1,187 foot-pounds of energy at the muzzle. Now in just a moment, we're going to stretch this out to 200 yards, laser measured, and what you're going to get there, by the time that bullet arrives at 200 yards at our target, it has dropped down to 2,414 feet per second, and energy's come down quite a bit, 712 foot-pounds of energy at the muzzle. Here's the perspective from 200 yards. I have an IPSC target set up, 18 by 24 inches, AR-500 steel, 3/8 of an inch thick. These bullets are just going to scratch it, if that, at that distance. That's it. Just a handful of shots. I'm not going to make this an extended shooting session. You saw some of the warm-up shots there as the video opened. Probably 5 or 6 shots, 2 cameras on that perspective. That's not too bad of a group. In fact, I think it's much better and more consistent than what I had out of the 1-to-9 16-inch with the 62 grain green tip. Measuring center to center on the perimeter, I'm coming in at about 3, maybe 3.5 inches. So I will definitely take that, because for my next shot, we have a piece of hot rolled steel, 4 by 12 inches, 1/4 inch thick. Put a spot of paint on it so I can see it from 200 yards without magnification. But we have 7 inches of clear ballistics gel tacked onto the back of it. So we're going to poke this steel and then see what happens to the ballistic gel with regard to the remnants of what's going through. I think that's going to be really interesting. I'm going to have the camera I'm holding now set up right there, looking into the side of that ballistic gel, and then a second camera right there focusing on the front of that steel plate. You can see my rod, and I'll be set up 200 yards with the AR where you see those orange flags. Hopefully I can do this in just a couple of shots. Handful of shots, couple of misses, but we have a couple of takeaways to carry back to the house. Here's the first point of impact, and the second. We'll get a closer look at that in just a moment with better lighting conditions. It's just about sunset here. On the first point of impact, we have what looks like the base of the bullet that's about 3.5 inches in, and then we had some things fly out the back. And on this second one, which I can see very nicely, over the top. There might be a fragment right there, but everything else pretty much carried out the back, and with quite a bit of force, it looks like. And what did exit the back of this 7-inch block likely is in the ground about 50-60 feet back, or in a tree trunk, because we're on the side of a hill. So what we're going to do next, last time I was down here in the dark and it's getting there quickly, I busted my rear end, so I'm not going to repeat that. We're going to pack this up, take it back to the house, and finish up under the lights. Back at the house, under the lights, and close-up of these pass-throughs on the steel. Again, hot-rolled steel, 1/4 inch thick, and not much resistance to this 5.56 millimeter. It passed through quite easily. You can see where the jacket's shredded somewhat on this one, and in fact the openings on these are so large you can pretty much drop the cartridge right in there. It almost goes all the way through. And on the back, on the exit, it's even larger, coming in at 45/100ths of an inch diameter on both of these, so nearly 1/2 inch on the opening on the pass-through. Still had enough energy to penetrate all the way through the block. This is the side of the block that was taped up against the back of the plate, so these are your entry points. And I'm assuming that black is carbon from the steel, and then over to the second shot. This is viewing from the side. This is the point of impact on the first hit. Your track, zooming in a little bit, about 3 inches in we have a semicircle of lead, and then what I thought was the core is actually a pretty good chunk of the jacket that's moving over the top, and there wasn't much left after that. There's a couple of pieces of lead, and just as this exited the block at the 7-inch mark, it took a little bit of a turn. This is looking over the top, and there's the point of impact on the second hit. And it seems there's more energy on this one than there was on the first one. About a 1/2 inch diameter on that track, and straight all the way through, and a very clean exit out the back. Shooting the 16-inch barrel AR, I was not too terribly surprised that we had a pass-through on mild steel at 200 yards. However, I was surprised that we still had enough mass and energy to completely penetrate 7 inches of the block. So we cannot discount the M193 for surplus. And I think I mentioned this before. I do like this better in the 1:9 twist when compared to the 62 grain green tip when it comes to accuracy.